Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and this is going to be a brief little review for Natsuyuki Rendezvous, Episode 9. Lots of interesting stuff this time around, and we're basically still following Hazuki, who is in this dream world ever still, and as he was plummeting through that white nothingness at the end of the last episode, I was really hopeful that he was actually making his way back to his body to reclaim it. And in fact, though, that wasn't the case. He just ended up on another plane of this dream world existence, and there was a kind of a mesh going on with like Sleeping Beauty themes and Snow White and the Seven Dwarf themes, and it was very interesting to see, but I feel like a lot of that was just kind of keeping him occupied because of what was going on in the real world with Atsushi still inhabiting his body, and of course Roka catching up to him. Now, all of this has to do with their last trip that they took up in the mountains and the trees and everything, and we see a lot of flashbacks to that effect, a lot of the conversations between the two, but it all comes to a head when Roka catches up to Atsushi in Hazuki's body, and she basically, she's pieced it together now. Somehow, some way, she can't explain it, she doesn't know how or why, but this is her husband, and he's in the body of Hazuki. She breaks down crying when this happens, and I was amazed at how heart-wrenching it was for me to watch, because I haven't been as sympathetic with Atsushi as I probably should have been, because he's been kind of questionable. He's been played at least, or portrayed, as having ulterior motives and being sneaky and doing some dastardly things, or questionable things at the very least. And, you can only grant him so much leeway with what he's doing. So, I mean, when this whole scene, panned out and played out the way it did, I really felt for the both of them, and seeing them back together, I really wish he would have said something. All those cues that she picked up on, the fact that he brought the plant out to this last place that they were, that he had, her husband's tools, and the way he ran when he tried to run away, because, of course, Atsushi was really poorly, health-wise, and had to run awkwardly when he was alive. So, of course, that's the only way he knew how to run, even though he's in a younger man's body now. And so, I mean, all of these things really tugged at the heartstrings, and I really felt for them both. But it ended up making me fearful as well, because, of course, I'm still rooting for Hazuki, and I really would like to see him accomplish something, find out that Roka did fall in love with him as well. And now it seems like that may never happen, but also the fact that, we get a little interesting message coming from Roka when she's remembering in a flashback, talking to her husband when they were on this hike originally, and she's telling him about this storybook, this patchwork storybook about a little girl who fell in love with a tree, and the tree fell in love with her. And so the tree tried to grow up big and strong and healthy over many years, 3,000 years, until finally it began to wither and get sick. And so the little girl went out and, well, fully grown woman, I would assume by then, went out and took a bite of the root and was poisoned by it and died. But then she was reborn as part of the root, so in a sense, the girl and the tree were intertwined from that point on for eternity. And I started really thinking this was a strong tip of the hat to what's going to happen with this story. That, one of the theories that I had was Roka was going to somehow die, and her soul would be, reunited with Atsushi, her husband, and they would move on to, whatever is afterlife, that plane of existence. And so I felt like that was a really strong tip of the hat for that possibility, how this is all going to play out. But then I also realized that, as things were happening in the real world, she's breaking down crying, and Atsushi comes to this realization that he didn't wish this to go that far, that he didn't want to break Roka's heart like this. He was going to do a few last things that he needed to do, and he was going to move on. He was going to basically resign himself to the afterlife without her. And so, again, tugging at my heartstrings, but also making me really fearful for Hazuki now, because as this is happening, Hazuki in this dream world, the whole time, the whole play with that dream world is that he is not the prince. It's Atsushi who is the prince, and he's missing. He's not in the dream world where he's supposed to be. And the little pixie Roka keeps making this point to him and keeps shooting him down and making him feel bad about himself and everything like that. But then when Atsushi realizes this moment, I can't leave Roka, I don't want to break her heart like this, all of a sudden, Hazuki sees a reflection of himself after the little pixie Roka calls him the prince, And sure enough, he looks like Atsushi in the dream world now. And so, wow, it's like really heavy revelations going on with this. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, it seems like, cut and dry at this point. That's it. Hazuki's going to be stuck here forever. The closest he's going to get to Roka, the woman he loves, is the pixie in the dream world. And Atsushi may end up inhabiting his body until that body dies. And he's able to actually kind of recapture his, marriage with Roka, and they'll live together until they both pass away due to old age, something along those lines. I mean, those are the big theories that I have going, that Roko may end up dying and, her soul will reunite with Atsushi's, which would then mean, Hazuki would get back to his body, but who would Hazuki end up with? And in that event, who is the character that we've seen a couple of times, seems to be single, but that, really nothing has amounted with the sister-in-law Miho. I mean, for all we know, it could be that, Hazuki, once Oroka and Atsushi are together again in the afterlife, maybe it's destined for Hazuki and Miho to hook up. I don't know, honestly. And again, the other theory being that this is how it's all going to play out. Basically, Hazuki is stuck in this dream world for good. He is now inhabiting the persona of the prince Atsushi in the dream world. His love will be the pixie Iroka, and that's where he'll be for eternity. I really have no idea. I mean, it could go any which way, even at this point in the series, and I don't think there are too many episodes left, so I'm definitely still, with every passing episode, chomping at the bit to see the way this story is going to play out and how it's all going to wrap up. And, of course, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below or as a video response. What are you thinking of this as you're watching it, if you're watching it? So that's going to be pretty much it for me on this one. I love this episode. I can't wait to see the next. And when it's all said and done, it's going to be amazing, I'm sure. So I'll catch you all later. Peace.